the Around the NFL podcast wants you to show some damn respect this Black Monday. I mean, these are people, man.
Exactly. From the Chris Wessling podcast studio, it's Around the NFL. Dan Hanzus, heroes, Gregg Rosenthal, Marc Sessler, and people don't understand that. And it's not even Black Monday. How many times do we have to come on the air the day after the regular season and remind you that Black Monday is defunct? This is New Horizons Monday.
It's good sometimes when the host of your show gets it. Like, this guy gets it.
He really does. Like Dan, let's start here. Dan is a bastion of respect towards elders, towards people of authority, and NFL coach types. So I think it starts with you, and I appreciate that.
I have a take, and I just want to say, because this is all kind of an ongoing bit, because, and Greg likes to align himself with these people too, where like, this is one of the hardest days. These are people and the staffs and all this. I totally agree with that. Like, people losing their jobs, no matter what the job is bad news. This is different in the sense that the coaching life, you sign up for this. Unfortunately, it's a transient type business where you never stay one place for too long. Look at Bill Belichick. How long was he in New England, Greg?
24 years.
And counting, perhaps? Who knows? We'll get to that in a bit. How many guys have been with him the whole time? Even the most stable position in the history of the head coaching in this century, that staff has been constantly churning. That's
a great question.
You're just moving and everything's moving. And
I believe his assistant has been there, and then the other ones are the ones that came out of his ex-wife's body. I would believe those are the only.
What a weird way to say it.
The only people who have remained. Now, they weren't working for the Patriots the whole time,
but technically,
they have
true, Greg.
been there.
Can you just say that again, just so we have it?
Never. I had a different way of saying it that would have been.
Could it have been worse?
Yes,
than that?
It could have.
Anyway, all I'm saying is it is by its nature, you're always moving around, and hopefully these men and women find new positions for next year. It is kind of you kind of just rotate around typically, and hopefully you don't fall off the grid.
It's also like high-level executive transactional business where, like, if someone is working at like Rite Aid and they get canned, well, go find a new job and see if you can pay rent. These guys are getting paid lavishly. Not
most of them. That is why I think people push back. That the vast majority.
I'm saying
of
the head coaches and general managers.
Right.
I understand.
What about the assistants?
I get that, and my heart goes out to all of them.
I get that. Like
sometimes, like, have you ever lost a job? Like, sometimes losing a job can refocus, make you think about what you should go do with your life. So it's like not always the worst thing on the planet.
Well said.
So maybe it's a great thing. Maybe we should celebrate.
Well, that's why we call it.
Yeah.
Not Black Monday. New Horizons. And we're going to get into it all. And then we're going to check in before we say goodbye here. And by the way, if you haven't gotten caught up, we just dropped the Week 18 recap banger, 2 hours of just the mastery of the craft. So you check that out. Now we're going to get you caught up where everything stands in terms of personnel and also everybody cleaning out their lockers that didn't make the playoffs. So you have a bunch of pressers going on today, a lot going on. And we will close the door on our preseason predictions in the regular season, check in on our over-unders, check back, see where we ended up with a running back draft. Remember that? That was fun. And also our sandwich props. But let's start with the news, and we learned late last night when we were recording the aforementioned Week 18 recap that Arthur Blank had indeed decided to part ways with Arthur Smith, and they have started their search. Let's hear a little bit from the owner, Blank. This is not from PBS and public radio's coverage. This is from WXIA. They have started their search, but they do not have a timetable yet, Blank says.
As I said initially, we've kind of begun the process, if you will. It doesn't take long to get going. So we're moving. But I also want to be clear on this, is that there is no timetable. The only timetable is to do this correctly. take our time, be thoughtful, do all the interviews, be respectful, make sure we have a full, diverse slate of candidates that we're considering.
The most interesting part of the Falcons day, I think, was number one, Terry Fontenot wasn't part of that press conference. They said he will be involved in the head coach search, but his role could depend on what the head coach wants to do. So that, to me, sounds like
Heard that before.
he's tenuous. It'll depend if they plan for him to work together, but again, it could depend on the head coach. And thinking, well, who could it be? Deanna Rossini, among others, have reported that they're interested in Bill Belichick, which just gets me thinking, like, who is putting that out there, and what is the purpose of that? Is it Belichick's agent? Is it the Falcons letting Bill Belichick know that? I don't know. It is curious to me. Our network hasn't quite gone that hard there yet, but that is a very interesting combination.
Let me ask you this: why does it have to be potentially Machiavellian? And why isn't the team just interested in him? And it's kind of just being.
Right, but you have to find out that way. You have to find out. So it's probably from the team, but maybe it's Rich McKay who's heavily involved in this. I'm just curious, like, why is that necessary? Maybe they're just trying to let him know, put a little pressure
dance.
on the.
Yeah,
It's the ancient dance.
I think also, like, if they're talking about patience, Belichick may take some patience. That whole process will, and if you talk about Belichick, if you're not going to go in with a powerful GM who's going to run the ship, it's like we want to find out what Belichick's role and all that is. And I think Arthur Blank is probably wanting to make this one work. It's been tenuous.
Arthur Blank is not getting any younger, and he wants to find somebody that can right the ship. And speaking of Bill Belichick, he called an early press conference this morning, and I was wondering late last night, this early press conference, is he looking to hit the ground running and announce that he's leaving? This is the guy that once wrote on a napkin. He's resigning as HC of the NYJ. Maybe it'd be dramatic. Not quite that dramatic. And in his presser, Bill underlined that he can't really do anything right now because he is contractually obligated to be the head coach of the New England Patriots.
As far as any decisions or direction or anything like that for next year, it's way too early for that. End of the year process is I don't think will be fundamentally any different from a the standpoint of how it's done. The decisions, that's a whole nother conversation, but how it's done, I'll meet with Robert like I always do, meet with the staff, meet with the personnel department, kind of recap the season, look at the big picture, and then look at some of the individual situations that are looming one way or another. So, but that's obviously a long way off,
very long
from where we are right now.
Okay, but it is. He's saying that, but this I would imagine could potentially move pretty quickly here because we're in the business now of hiring new coaches, and if the Patriots need a new head coach, and people want Bill Belichick, this thing has to move.
I mean, so he's been there for 24 years. Rough out of the gate, rough first season, but in general, he's never had to answer questions like this before in New England. Anything like this, it's completely new territory, and I think that there's a couple things happening. But it's like, if you're Kraft and Belichick, I thought the most shocking thing that could have happened was him coming out and giving you a note on a napkin, because too much has happened here historically.
Cool.
Yeah, it would have been cool, but it's not the Jets, and he didn't want the job 24 hours after taking it or have it shoved on him. Like, if you're Kraft, like, you want to, if there's going to be an exit, it's not just, I don't think it would just be Kraft flat out firing Bill Belichick. It's going to have to be some sort of, it's going to have to look a different way to the public, at least. It's going to look a different way, I think. But secondly, like, if you're Kraft and Belichick is getting interest from other clubs, like, do you just fire him, or do you keep Bill Belichick, who's under contract, so that if he's going to go somewhere else, you can trade the greatest coach in NFL history for assets versus nothing? It's like, what approach do you take? Is it respectful? Is it we're going to do this so it looks good for everyone and put a fine bookend on the story? Or do we get assets as the New England Patriots, a team in need of a lot, for giving away the greatest coach ever?
Florio reported yesterday that Belichick essentially has the power, or they can't make that happen, a trade. They can't.
He would have to go agree to it.
I mean, but if it was a place that he wanted to go, kind of like
but why would he?
What if it was the Falcons?
So I do think you can take some interesting things from Belichick's press conference. Number one, he mentioned his contract voluntarily. He never says that. So right there,
He's never had to before now.
he's never talked that was very pointed. It was saying, I'm under contract. I always look to our friend Tom Curran to interpret these. He knows it. And he also says, as we tape this Monday afternoon on the East Coast, don't expect anything today. He thought it was very much Bill Belichick saying, if you want to fire me, you're going to have to come do it. Like the whole trade thing, why would he help them take assets away from the team he's going to go? It's not going to happen. I don't think there's any chance. The whole, let's make this warm and professional. If we want you to step down, we'll see. He might not be willing to do that either. He might be like, you want to come fire me? Fire me. He did express a little bit of flexibility when they asked him about, would you take on a GM? Would you listen to having a lesser role? And he said, look, I would listen to whatever they think's in the best interest of the team. Again, Tom Curran thought like he's only going to bend so far. He's not going to change and become like a different person and start like answering to some GM who has final say. He says there's always going to be someone that has final say. I don't expect him to be there, but this does seem like he's telling Kraft, if you want to fire me, it's like you got to fire me. I'm not going to just walk away and make this easy. And I think there is some discomfort from Kraft of being the guy who got rid of Brady and got rid of Belichick, which is natural.
In other news, this was expected, obviously, and it went down and became official on Monday morning. New Horizons Monday. Josh Harris and the Commanders have said goodbye to Ron Rivera, who is moving on after, what was this, his third season with the team? Fourth? 4 seasons at the helm. He went 26-40-1 in his 4 seasons. They won the NFC East with a 9-7 record. His first year, but it's been uphill mostly with Rivera and their eternal search for an answer at quarterback is a big part of that. New ownership, new head coach, new brain trust. Also reported on Monday is that Harris has hired 2 prominent executives, former Golden State Warriors. John, I'm interested to get your thoughts on this, Sessdog. Warriors general manager Bob Myers and former Minnesota Vikings GM Rick Spielman to assist his ownership group with searches for the new head of football operations and head coach, that according to ESPN. This is a NFL, the rare, for those of you that follow the NBA, an NFL story with a byline, Adrian
Wojnarowski.
Woj, and Adam
Wojbomb.
Schefter. So a Woj bomb in the NFL. Mark, your thoughts on a Warriors executive entering the NFL fray here?
Well,
Football is completely different than basketball.
All right, thank you, Mark.
Knew
Greg,
that-
your thoughts on this?
knew that was coming. Go ahead, Greg.
No, that was the bit. Go ahead.
Okay, so it's
He
just
got mad.
helping
Sorry.
with the search.
Yes.
Like I had no problem with this actually, and I've seen a lot of like outrage over it, and it's
Really?
yeah, a little bit. Just listening to some stuff, and people
need
like,
to chill.
why are they? I think
Who
they do need to chill.
specifically was outraged?
It's just some feedback I heard in general where it's just like radio stuff where it's like, how could you possibly do this? It's like, well, because
Mark's
you're
on that
Josh
AM radio
Harris.
dial.
But you're Josh Harris, and like you're doing what I think someone like David Tepper and other owners should do is like, I don't know how to do this. Like, I want help. Like, I'm not going to be some sort of like heavy swinging guy that just does what I want out of pocket. Like, I thought it was instructive how much anger, irritation, and mockery there was when the Browns hired Paul DePodesta out of MLB. Because like he was going to be coming from a completely different sport, different thinking, and he's actually done a lot of good work for them behind the scenes. And this is not someone who's sticking around for years and years. Bob Myers, maybe he has good ideas. It's like they're looking for the right person to lead them. I don't know what the critique is, like why it's a big problem.
I don't know if there is a critique.
I don't think.
Sessdog.
I mean,
Josh
I think
Harris.
radio guys just need angles and they talk.
Here's Josh Harris on the path toward new leadership.
Even though this season was hard for me and hard for us, it's hard to win 4 games. From my point of view, we are coming out of this with poised for a great future. A lot of draft capital, a lot of cap space, And I'm lucky enough to be supported by an amazing ownership group, and obviously we think we're an attractive destination for the next generation of leadership.
So there you go. I think the best thing you could say if you're a Commanders fan, first of all, you got the number 2 overall pick, so you're going to most likely
That helps.
bring in a quarterback. And this is not Daniel Snyder leading the charge. We don't know. I mean, Panthers fans, we're going to get to the Panthers in a second. Sometimes change doesn't necessarily equate to helping an organization, but it absolutely helps to get Snyder out of the building as they begin their latest rebuild here on the 21st century.
And they have requested to talk to an absolute flood of people already for both coach and GM.
Right. The thing that was interesting, though, is they said they were looking for the head of football operations first. So they're just looking for someone to hire the other guys, but they're already starting the coaching interview. So that is a little confusing to me. Supposedly Raheem Morris, Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn, possibly Jim Harbaugh. Some people have said possibly Belichick. So those are some of the assistants. And then a bunch of GM candidates. A guy who went to the same high school, I believe, as one of the executives there, Adam Peters, who's with the 49ers, Alec Hallaby with the Eagles, different assistant GMs from around the league. So they're getting after it fast. Rick Spielman working at the 33rd team. I mean, the 33rd team could have a little coaching tree here, the website.
There you go. And other news. So I mentioned the Panthers, and it's been obviously a rocky year, really a dreadful year all the way around with David Tepper at the front leading things, coming off a fine for throwing a drink on Jaguars fans and firing the head coach, and Bryce Young struggling through his rookie year and getting shut out again in Week 18. So they're starting from rubble right now, and it will not be Scott Fitterer involved with this as well. The man standing next to Mr. Tepper when that drink went flying was let go on Monday. So Scott Fitterer is out, and they are just casting a wide net trying to get this thing going.
It never makes sense to keep the GM. And that's part of what I'm wondering with this Washington thing. It's like maybe it's just they're sending the request, but I do think you want to time this all out. If you're going to have a football ops guy, like, you got to get that person in the building first, and then the GM. And sometimes you just pair the GM and coach, and that's worked out too. Like Les Snead and Sean McVay had no previous history. That worked out. Les Snead was already in the building there, but Tepper does not give me much confidence. Josh Harris has already owned a sports team, and I know some Sixers fans would disagree, but ultimately, they're a successful team. I mean, the process was painful, but it worked out. They're one of the best teams in the league, and I don't think people think he's a terrible owner or anything.
I think it's going to be the most interesting coaching pathway here, because there's Tepper has been talking. We know that, and it's not been good
today.
And it's like, you coaches that are smart, and Belichick really literally wrote the book on this, on you don't go pair up with an owner that you don't feel partnered with, empowered by. And it's who's putting the Panthers on the top of their list? You're saddled with Bryce Young. You don't know what's going to go on there. You don't know what's happening with the general manager, and the owner feels about as hot and cold and all over the place as anyone in the entire league. I just think it's going to be very interesting to see who even decides to interview and who would get farther enough in the process to say yes.
And they've already started asking people, not Chiefs VP of Operation Brant Tillis, Bucks assistant GM Mike Greenberg. We're not going to necessarily know these names that well, but it sounds like they're starting with the GM and then moving on from after that.
Tepper released a statement, but we did not hear from him on Monday. Fitterer had been the GM since 2021. He was part of the search committee that last offseason hired Coach Frank Reich, who was let go after a 1-10 start. So, yes, you could not be in a more rocky situation. And money talks, obviously. It's not the most fertile ground for someone to come out of the woodwork. But the one thing that Tepper does have is more money than just about any owner in the NFL. So he's going to be throwing a lot at whatever candidates they decide they want to be, rebooting with.
That coaching staff under Frank Reich, they love to brag, was the highest paid coaching staff in the history of the league. All the assistants were doing really well, and they only made it through 1 year. So those assistants are still under contract. Hopefully they get other jobs, and then it's
Do they get to double up, or is it offset?
I don't know. I think
That's a
depends
real
on-
new
I-
horizon.
that could be
Get
like
paid
packed
twice.
into the contract. I thought that you don't get paid. You don't double dip. Like if you're Frank Reich and you took another head coaching job.
We'll have to text Josh McCown
We'll have
and
to
find
find
out.
out, yeah.
He was the quarterback.
But Frank Reich right now is like he could sit in the Bahamas for the next 4 years.
Oh, Frank, I don't think he's double dipping. He indicated, I think he's had enough.
My only
Tepper-
goal.
I'm just saying he's making enough money for the next 5+ years. Matt Rule didn't have to work in. He signed like an 8-year contract under Tepper.
Right, and Matt Rule then signed like a $7 billion contract with Nebraska because that's what with these college guys. They go back to college,
Yeah.
they find great success and get paid like crazy. So, again, see, a lot of these coaches, they land on their feet. They bring their guys with them. Hopefully that's what happens with all these Panthers people just kind of fired off upon the hillside. All right, in other news, Mike Vrabel. A lot of intrigue around Vrabel, longtime Titans head coach. He met with the Titans on Monday, and the reporting out there right now is that his future is uncertain. Greg, give me a percentage chance that Vrabel's back with Tennessee.
Ooh. Well, I don't know. Has he met with the Titans yet? I think Ian Rapport said
He is
that
to meet the
meeting
Titans.
is coming. And just the fact that enough insiders are floating this out there, and Ian did it in a very professional way that made it sound like, Mike Vrabel likes Rand Carthon, their GM, but, changes could
What are we
happen.
tabulating right now?
I don't know. We're not
Well, you asked him
tabulating
for a
anything.
percentage.
Oh, okay. That's good.
Did you give me the percentage?
No, I'll give it. I'm going to give it high because I think this is like a power play. This sounds like a power play move where Vrabel is just trying to take as much control as possible, and I think they want to keep Vrabel. But there was a report, again, from, I believe, Diana Rossini that said he'd be interested in the Patriots job if that
We've heard that.
came
yeah.
open. But this feels out of the power play handbook, which is like, we're going to make the Titans bend to my will if I'm Mike Vrabel and get what I want, and he might want a little different structure in terms of the front office.
He seemed agitated.
70.
Dating back to the A.J. Brown trade. I mean, he was very, like, you could see him visually, like, annoyed during that draft process when they traded him away. Whenever I hear, like, coach and GM have some issues, it's just like I kind of automatically just buy that as that's absolutely true. And Vrabel seems to like be slightly annoyed with the way that things have gone with the Titans behind the scenes for a while. And so I'd put it at like 65% that he stays. I think if the Patriots job came open, there's going to be pursuit of him from Kraft. I could see that potentially.
Here's my hot take. Is Mike Vrabel someone to be excited about if you're a Patriots fan? We're 5 years in. I'm just thinking offense. He's never found, and it's the same reason why I don't think Belichick is the right guy to keep right now. Because, like, he just hasn't had answers on offense. It's just been this old school sort of thinking. And Vrabel cycled through all these coordinators in Tennessee. He's never really hit on one. That's not what I want as a fan.
Well, quite frankly, that's why I've been pushing back a little bit on the Antonio Pierce thing. In general, and I have it with my own coach, a defensive coordinator in Saleh, like if you don't have an offensive mind in place they can count on, like I feel like a defensive coach only goes so far.
Like Frank Reich, Josh McDaniels,
Sure.
like Arthur Smith are three of the coaches that just completely were fired and failed.
Vrabel's a good head coach.
I think Vrabel's
question.
Two of those
very
guys are
good
total
coach.
disasters at head coach, though, in terms of
But Vrabel is a good yes, he's defensive minded, but Vrabel is a good head coach. And I'd push back a little bit that when they had Derrick Henry, Tannehill, and A.J. Brown, like they had something going on there. It's just they kind of aged out of
if
that
he
offense.
doesn't stay with the Titans, I'd be shocked if he didn't get another job.
Oh, yeah. I think he would be the belle of the ball, and I think the Patriots would be interested. I'm just saying, like, man, that offensive line was bad for 4 or 5 years, and that I do want someone that is able to problem solve, or like a
Hence annoyment
McDaniel.
with the previous GM and maybe the current one too, though.
Right.
Yeah.
Apparently
Rand
they're not
Carthon's
so
only
hot.
been there for 1 year, too, so I think that feels a little more personal, or maybe just that Vrabel doesn't like
That's been reported
having
as
the juice.
an arranged marriage that hasn't taken, and that's been part of the drama there. In other news, the Colts, they missed out on the playoffs in heartbreaking fashion on Saturday night, but Coach Shane Steichen is not planning to make any major changes to his coaching staff, and that includes defensive coordinator. There's been speculation around DC Gus Bradley, but Steichen said on Monday, "I believe in continuity." I'll say that.
He inherited Gus Bradley.
Yeah.
And I would say that, like, for some of the defenses around the league where it's like we need to make a coordinator switch, Green Bay, other places, like I wouldn't point to the Colts in my top 5 of that list. Like their defense was active and like an asset at times. I mean, Gus Bradley wasn't a big problem there.
No, they've been fine. And then they worked together in San Diego too. That was San Diego, right? Where Gus Bradley and Steichen were both there at the same time. He's a likable guy. Gus Bradley. Just he's always surviving.
High energy.
Don't look at his head coaching record in Jacksonville. I think it might be the worst percentage-wise, but he is a good DC and has been for a long time now. In other news, a DC opening is open in the Meadowlands because the Giants have parted ways with Wink Martindale. It's being called a issue where Martindale resigned as the DC, but it is no secret that Wink and Brian Daboll, their relationship is the center of this, how this all went down. It was reported during the season that the two were in a, quote, bad place. And now Wink, after, he was really celebrated, as was Daboll last year, for getting the Giants back to respectability. But the team sank to 27th overall in defense this year, even though they tied for the NFL lead in takeaways with 31. So Wink is a lifer. Wink will find a job as well, but he's done with Daboll and company.
These things change fast. Reports early this morning from our network, from ESPN, across the board. Sources saying the expectation is Don Wink Martindale will return. Hour or two later, Brian Daboll gets on the podium, is asked about it, says, yeah, I expect both Don Wink Martindale and Mike Kafka, my offensive coordinator, to return. And by the afternoon, the word is out. They fired his assistants, and he's resigned. They might have done the thing where they like fired the rest of his staff, and then it was like, we'll keep you if you want. But they knew that he wouldn't do that, and he goes out a winner with a nice game plan, stuffing the Eagles. Who knows? Maybe the Eagles would want Wink Martindale next year. I don't know.
Or next week.
Feels like an upgrade from what they currently have. I like Wink. I think he could do the job. In other Giants news, by the way, Saquon Barkley skipped his exit interview, telling reporters they know how to reach me. So that sounds like essentially there's a lot of speculation that Saquon's ready for a fresh start, and perhaps he is after playing that 1-year deal where a lot of drama around his contract. Played through injury and had a nice season, and he's probably looking for a fresh start. But you never know. Money talks, as I said.
He did all these goodbyes in the locker room and everything, and skipping the exit interview and saying they know how to reach me.
Yeah,
pretty strong statement.
I like that move.
Said he was numb to them possibly using the franchise tag on him again, which actually isn't that crazy an idea. Numb to it, like he would deal with it. It'd be a lot of money. But
excuse me,
I don't think he's expecting a long-term deal. Sounded like he wants out.
It shows you how fast the regular season shot by, because I feel like we were just dealing with this like off-season drama in Saquon about 4 hours ago.
The Rosenthal 101 free agents, if Barkley ends up on that list, is he top 8? Top 5?
It's a really, well, right now, because no tag has been issued, no, because it's a really good list right now. But he would be in the top 15, and that's where he was last year. And I think he looks even better than he did a year ago. Had a nice year.
Put him on the Chiefs or something. Let's go. Let's fly. Well, maybe not the Chiefs. I would like to see him on a.
Why not?
The Chiefs are now in old Patriots mode, where whenever a player becomes available that's kind of spicy, it's like, put him on the Chiefs.
But then I thought of Pachenko, and he's like,
Mike Evans, put him on the Chiefs.
Like, who's a contender that really could use a Saquon Barkley? Put him on one of those teams, and let's see what happens. I like Saquon.
Texans.
Bronx native. All right.
Texans, yeah.
They could use a running back. Okay. In other Meadowlands news, the Jets had their end-of-season press conferences. Everybody spoke, including Aaron Rodgers, who told the reporters the number one thing the Jets need to do heading into next year is, quote, flush the bullshit, which I find interesting because Rodgers is kind of at the center of so much of the bullshit around this team. I mean, we're just coming off Jimmy Kimmelgate and all the every week, and part of this is about the way our league is covered, but like every time he does the McAfee interview, it's a storyline, and some of these storylines don't have traction, but then some do, like when he says that Jimmy Kimmel might be on the Epstein list that gets released, and it becomes kind of an embarrassing situation, which, by the way, I didn't hear from the Jets on that. I heard Disney and ESPN spoke out, and McAfee did damage control on that, but I didn't hear anything from the Jets, which, again, reminds you the reason you didn't is because Aaron Rodgers runs the Jets. So the Jets aren't going to apologize for Aaron Rodgers saying anything because Aaron Rodgers doesn't want them to. Anyway, Robert Saleh is the head coach, kind of. Aaron Rodgers is kind of the head coach too, but he is when asked about, man, he's entering year 4 without ever making the playoffs. Robert Saleh, they gave everybody a mulligan. Is next year kind of all or nothing?
Do you see next year as a playoffs or else year?
Rich Cimini.
I always feel that way. I always feel like we need to win. It's this profession. It's results oriented. No one really cares about process or progress. It's about winning, and so for me personally, always expect to win.
I mean, it's just shifted completely into coach speak at this point.
Yeah.
He's 18.
Which at least he has. There's been times this year where he just didn't have answers, and he would just like stare back at reporters with nothing to say. I thought Saleh was exposed a little bit this year, but we'll see what happens with the quarterback.
Given their setup, I think it's the right move to stay the course.
Do you think it's the right move with Nathaniel Hackett? Like, I would say specifically, and that's the one thing where it feels toxic because...
Hi, my name's Nathaniel Hackett. Thanks. It's nice to see you out here.
It's obviously Aaron's boy, but it's like that. Can't we look at the evidence to suggest that we need to make an upgrade or a change? But we're not going to. I know that's where it starts to feel ridiculous.
And also, Saleh says, in this business, the only thing that people care about is results, not progress, yada yada. He's 18-33. Joe Douglas is 27-56. So they are getting a long leash.
Yes,
to try to
kind of an unprecedented leash, and I cringe with so many of Saleh's press conferences now because, he also said yesterday, I think, that they exercised a lot of demons this year. It's like, bro, what are you talking about? Because you beat Bill Belichick in Week 18, one of the worst Patriots teams of all time. Like, what other? If you want to count that, I'll be nice to you because the quarterback got hurt on play 4. But tell me what other demons were exercised in your tenure since Week 1.
I feel like we opened the door and in came a
What are you
legion of
talking
demons.
about, dude?
What's
this guy talking about?
I got to give my old boss Florio some credit. I love his headline talking about Rodgers here. The headline: Aaron Rodgers urges Jets to shed BS, teases Tuesday ESPN appearance to talk Jimmy Kimmel.
There you go.
Because Rodgers said, I'm not going to talk to you guys about it to Rich Cimini, but watch on Tuesday. I will address it then.
That's part of what you signed up for, and I was willing and still am willing to live with it. But what you were supposed to get is also Aaron Rodgers on the field.
Yeah.
It still blows my mind that I get all this, but I never got to see him play on the field yet, and here we are.
You got Hard Knocks.
That was an awesome run. It was a great summer. All right. In other news, Dennis Allen, not a very popular man in New Orleans, even after a strong close. The Saints finished 9-8, second in the NFC South. Did not make the playoffs though for the 3rd straight year. However, Dennis Allen said at his end of season news conference that when asked if he expects to remain head coach, that is my expectation. Yes. So Dennis Allen, as of right now, he's feeling pretty safe. And since we're talking Saints, I can't get enough of Jameis Winston, who was the quarterback on the field when they are in a victory formation and then pivot into a handoff to get Jamal Williams his first touchdown of the year because he's been such a warrior for them. By the way, one take about that. All right, like if you really feel Jamal deserves it, and then line up in the I formation and run it to then also do the trick play though to Pearl Harbor it on top. That's a bridge too far. But listen, Jameis Winston was at the controls, so what do you expect? Here's a little bit of Jameis after the game because he was holding court and he was enjoying himself, and I love listening to him talk.
Well, I apologize to DA because the play was victory, but I also explained to DA that it was a team decision, and I think when you have a team morale, and I asked the guys, I say, guys, like, what do you want to do? We know how much Jamal means to this team, and I understood from DA's perspective, so I give him that. Yeah, but DA didn't condone that at all. You know, he didn't. However, we decided as a team to do it, and man, we got an interception to the 1 yard line. You know, like. So if we would have scored, would it still would have been disrespectful?
I think it's the most enjoyable thing that's happened in months.
I love with all due respect, it's like the fool that doesn't realize really what he's saying as he's speaking, that it actually makes it worse for your coach after you already sold him out on the field, then to be like, to explain it to the media in a way that actually made Dennis Allen come off worse. That, like, we decided as a team what we were going to do with, like, no disrespect to DA. It's like, I don't know, man. And then to top it off, you want to talk about comedy. It got better, Mark.
Yes.
Because then there's some other journo who comes in. I don't know what his deal is. I don't know if he's a Saints beat writer or a Falcons beat writer or who he is.
It was a Saints guy. I'll try to find the name.
He starts to pontificate about his opinions and his feelings respectfully.
Do you think we regret that?
Well, you do have to play these guys twice a year. That's all I'm saying.
This music in the back.
I know, but I'm talking about the future. You know, somebody's got to play these guys twice a year. That's all.
How do you feel about it? Tell me how you feel about it.
Not good.
Not good.
Why don't you feel good about it?
Because you got to play these guys twice a year.
But what about it makes you not feel good about it?
The head coach tells you to kneel it out. You're asking my opinion?
Yes.
I think you should have kneeled it out.
Okay. Well,
I'm just telling you as respectfully as I can. You answer my question as respectfully as you can, and I'm telling you as respectfully as I can that I respectfully disagree. That's all.
You disagree with me or the entire team?
Whoever made that decision.
Okay, so you disagree with the entire team. So thank you.
No, I'm being honest and respectful.
And that's what I'm attempting to do too. And that's what I am doing.
And that's what I am doing.
And the siren and the club music going off in the background. You just can't make it up.
There was one part that was not part of that clip, and I recommend anyone find the whole 3 minutes. It's great. Where he was like, where he did kind of let the mask fall down a little bit, where he's like, so the first 41 points, that didn't make you upset. It was the last 7 that did it. It was just like, I love it. But you know what? I did think it was kind of telling. Many Saints players have been tweeting out today, from Jamal Williams to your old friend Mark Ingram, my dog Mark with a C,
Mark with a C,
to Jimmy Graham, just how much they love Jameis Winston and that he's one of the best teammates ever. Here's Jimmy Graham. This man is the best teammate I've ever had. Get off his back. Loves the city. This game embodies everything you can ask. Was a rare situation. We all take responsibility. No one thought it would get blown out of proportion. Also, the Falcons.
Yeah, that's what a lot of it is.
I think
the rivalry. Listen, I would love to be friends with Jameis Winston.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm going to win a playoff game before Jameis Winston does, though. Like, I'm sure he's a great guy and a great teammate, but he is a goober, man.
I don't know. I kind of like.
I know.
Genuinely
Everybody loves
enjoyed
him. He's
like
a
how
goober.
he answered, how he went through that conversation there.
Respect.
He's like, Dennis Allen does not condone it. However, like he kept doubling back into his own logic.
Right. It was over the second he goes, yeah, I apologize, DA, but it was a team decision, which is so funny because like
best.
Dennis Allen's the coach of the team, and he's like, no, this is our team.
But does he realize in his
what I do
and what he's saying that he is essentially selling out?
Yes,
the coach?
I think they know.
I don't think he knows. Actually,
I think he knows, and this was. I'm taking this from some of the writers. He knows he's not going to be back there. He knows he might not be a favorite at Dennis Allen. I don't think any of these things are made in a vacuum. So when people are saying like Dennis Allen's lost a little bit of the control, I think that's true. I think like Jameis is just saying like, I'm out of here. We're going to do whatever the hell we want.
Right. And I know everything's awesome. So I'm just saying that was kind of a messed up thing to do. That's all.
I hear that. I mean, I think the interview was awesome. It makes life.
I'm just saying. I know that everything is always like, oh, it's so amazing. Everything is amazing. That was a tough situation for Arthur Smith. A tough situation for the Falcons there at the end of his tenure, and then
Yes.
That there were elements of it that I'd be if it was your team, you'd be furious. Put it that way. But that's the rivalry. Also, the Falcons and the Saints. And it makes next year even more exciting.
I think Falcons fans were so mad at that team. They were like, we deserve it. And I think we, as fans, we would keep it all in perspective, which is part of what I enjoyed about Jameis. Yes, in the context of what went on, I guess it's a serious conversation, but it's not the most serious thing that has ever happened in the world. And you could almost see he was having a little fun with it.
The wild eyes he has, too. I love the wild eyes Jameis has. All right, let's take a break. And then we'll close the door on some regular season predictions and then get out of here. Yes, the familiar chimes. Chimes? It's a harp.
That seemed more like a harp.
Yeah. What would you call that then?
I've never played a harp, though, so that I'm not coming from a place of authority.
Not a plucking. It's a plucking of the strings of the harp, which means it can only mean one thing. It's New Horizons Monday. Greg, you were in a band. It was an acid prog rock emo outfit. Did you ever play the harp with Delaware?
No. There were a variety of instruments. We had some talented musicians. Andy Moody, Kristen Hinckley, Jeff Lash. I was not a talented musician.
What was your role in the band again?
My sister-in-law, Karen, though, can play the cello. That's I don't know. Is that a harp? That's a cello.
Your brother is a gifted guitarist.
Oh yeah, he's a what do you call it when you play a bunch of stuff?
He's an
everyman
instrument. But yes, guitar and piano certainly.
Perhaps you should have recruited him to Delaware, and maybe you'd be touring the world right now.
But his music is a little more refined, I believe.
Well, now back then though, he was playing clubs and stuff with Whitesnake type music. But yes, he did end up kind of conducting. Writing classical music? He ended
your
up
brother, an actual musician. What did he? How old? He's older, right?
5 years older. Yeah.
What was his first reaction when you told him that you were in a band?
He was in college and couldn't have cared less, and probably didn't ask me any questions for about a 6-year period. He was off in Montreal doing it.
But you were the lead singer.
Lead vocals. Yeah, he was on Vox.
Totally. There was other people who'd sing, but yes, I was the most.
Were you the principal songwriter of Delaware as well?
No, Andy Moody was, but I was number 2. We would kind of
like a Lennon-McCartney.
Sure.
I would say Andy Moody quietly was the key behind the whole operation, but yes, I wrote some songs as well. We
Such
did it
as?
together.
Give us a title.
Nordic Track, I remember. That was a good one.
Nordic Track.
Nordic Track.
You closed the show with Nordic Track.
That was a big hit, yeah.
When will you release the tapes, finally, before we move on?
I don't have the tapes. I'm not aware of any tapes.
Why did you write a song about a treadmill?
A society.
This is
feeling like you're on the treadmill and you can't get off.
No, that's a good. I'm wondering if that's you felt that way at that age, that you were already on a treadmill, despite being in an emo band.
He was listening
Feels
to
like you're
a lot of Billy Corgan at
Maybe
the time.
we were just big fans of Nordic Track. I think it was a great piece of equipment.
Was like, despite all my rage, I'm still just a rat in a cage. I think that was Gregg's interpretation of that thematically.
How do you know?
I'm a big fan of Delaware.
You've never heard a bar of it?
Not yet.
I will find some other song titles. I'll go look for them.
All right, and again, the word is out on the streets. If you have any connection to the band Delaware, which came out of Worcester, Mass. In the late 90s, early 2000s, and you have access to a tape, any type of demo.
I grew up in Wilbraham, Mass., not Worcester.
That's close.
We got to find this.
Yeah,
we got to find this Andrew
away.
Moody guy. Like, it sounds like we've got a name.
Andrew Moody. Anybody connected to this band, Delaware? Gregg's brother. Maybe Gregg, in a moment as a teenager, he looked to his big brother and said, "Hey, Dean, this is what I've been working on." And maybe he handed the tape over. And the brother has a tape. Possible? Hey, bro, check this out. Let me know what you think. It's our debut album, which was called
How Do You Want It Cooked?
How Do You Want It Cooked?
I believe.
Fresh off the presses. Let us know what you think. And maybe that tape's sitting somewhere in...
No, Dean had no interest. I mean, I don't know if you had any older siblings, but 5 years older, he was not too involved in what his high school brother was doing back then. He was like...
Bet there's like a grainy VHS tape of someone who taped one of their concerts, like a backyard type of situation, sitting out there.
Like he played the old Boston Garden or something. There's got to be something out there.
We've spent a lot of time on this.
Well, it's the most important thing we've talked about today. All right, let's get into our over-unders. Okay, so before the season started, We did a ep with Barnwell, which is a tradition where we each picked, I believe, 4 teams and based the over-unders off DraftKings before the season started. So let's go through each of ours. We'll start with the Zuzzer. Let's see how I did this year. And you can check this out on YouTube. I went 2-2. All right, so I hit the over on the Browns.
Look at your Browns optimism.
I was always in on the Browns.
You were 9.5.
All throughout the summer, I was in on the Browns. I thought, and a lot of that is I liked Nick Chubb and Deshaun Watson bouncing back. Obviously, they had a big year without either of those two men for the most part, but I hit the over there. This one I had to sweat out a little bit the last couple of weeks, but the Titans, I hit the under, which was 7-5, and I'm looking back and remembering that was the one I was the least confident about. In fact, I really wished I would have taken the over, but as it worked out, where did they go?
They got 6-11.
6
So you
11.
cleared that by a game and a half.
And the Browns went 11-6, so I hit that easily. I lost my last 2, so I went 2-2. The Buccaneers, I hit the under. I was not high on Baker and the Bucs this year. They end up getting to 9 wins and winning their division. And then the Jets, that's not fair. There was nothing fair about the Jets, but Rodgers gets hurt, so I hit the over. I wanted to hit the over at 9.5, but didn't come close. The Jets finished 7-10, so 2-2.
It's interesting to think the Bucs they were predicted to come in last behind the Panthers. Panthers were 7.5. They were at 6.5.
Well, they showed kind of promise last year and then added a first-round pick.
All right, let's move to Greg, who's had a big year with all sorts of predictions this year. Oh, stop it. Greg went 4-0.
Naturally.
Cess dog. All right,
it is.
I got to say something, Greg. First of all, before we get into this,
I'm happy for Greg.
I'm impressed. I've always been very complimentary of your great knowledge of the game and your passion for it. But I've also been doing this with you for a decade, and I just want you to appreciate this.
Okay.
Because you've never been like this year, with whether it's the game picks or what we're back to. You were on a heater this year, and I just hope. Do you appreciate?
I am appreciated. That's why I was
season?
honking so much last night and teasing my potential retirement, because I know it will not continue. It will be like the Patriots, dark days.
What is your record?
I will say of all of any of the predictions, game debut or the locks or whatever, I think the over-unders, still luck is maybe the most important factor, but I think it's the least amount of luck. I think these are the ones I would care about the most.
Because I think you went 16-2 or 17-2 in the locks, and you went 4-0. So let's go through them. You took the Panthers under, which was a home run, 7.5, and they end up, of course, 2-15, the worst team in football. You always down on the Giants, so you bang the under at 7.5, and the Giants, they almost come and get you with a
they
nice
only got to
half.
6, but yes.
But I think they were 1-7 at one point. They had a nice second half, all things considered.
Those two were good. The other two were more lucky. So that's what I'm talking about.
You banged that under and you hit it well. The Bears, you had 7.5 on the. Oh, man, you really are. You started it this year, buddy. They were 7-9 going into Week 18, and everybody was optimistic about that Packers game, but they get beat, so they stay at 7 wins. So you hit that at 7.5, and then you son of a gun. The Bills down in the fourth quarter on Sunday Night Football, staring at 10-7
at 6-6. So they needed to win 5 straight to get that over 10.5.
And you hit the 10.5 over behind a 5-game winning streak to get to 11-6. Bravo, sir.
Well done, Greg.
I mean, what can you say, Mark?
I feel like
I don't have anything else to say. I said I'm excited for Greg.
I mean, if I honestly, and you guys know this, if I ever had the season Greg had, that would be it. I'm gone. I am going. I'm taking a radio show somewhere in Long Island.
Why does this make it? Why do I feel like I probably went 0-4 to balance this out?
Well, I went 2-2.
These I was mentally tracking throughout the year. I have to admit, they did matter to me.
I was not.
Oh, by the way,
tracking
add all of this.
Yeah.
Greg's children advanced to the finals against each other in their fantasy football league.
It is.
Am I missing anything, Greg?
It's nothing if not impressive.
Of opulence, unbelievable.
Game debut.
I'm furious.
I finished off the regular season title there too. Over a Cynthia. Very difficult.
Greg, I am impressed and just filled with rage. I to be this close to greatness, but not have it myself. Good for you, sir. So you say 2-2 for Zeuser, 4-0 for Gregg. You're saying that naturally you would have to go 0-4?
I mean, I'm just suggesting that's the narrative of this show, so probably something in that ballpark.
Well, he can't make up what you went.
No, I mean, narrative.
Yeah.
All right.
No, I mean my own narrative that I created.
All right, Sess, what'd you do? Oh, no!
Are you?
He went 0-4.
Oh, my God.
Everyone check us out on YouTube. We've got fancy graphics, and most importantly, you can have Mark's facial reaction to this. And I've heard from some people last week. They didn't even know we were on YouTube at all, so go check it out.
All right, so Sess Dog.
Greg gets the pitch in for the show, too.
Let's go through it. Okay.
Yeah.
So you bang the under on the Ravens, who obviously the best team in football, finished 13-4. You saw them as going under 10.5.
I thought they'd be like a playoff team, maybe, but
you went under 10.5. That was
and I remember having this conversation because I took the Browns over. You took the Browns under 9.5, and of course they win 11, and they're going to the playoffs. So maybe that was kind of protecting yourself a little bit. But you lost that. You had the Chiefs over. Ooh, this one's annoying.
I don't hate that I did that back then.
The Chiefs, they almost always hit the over, Greg, right? Like
11.5. I mean,
I believe they had hit it for the last 6 straight years.
Right.
This was the different
Mark
year.
picked them.
Yes. Just like I took Mahomes, I think third in my fantasy draft before Christian McCaffrey. This was the year everything changed. The Chiefs over 11.5. They have the worst 11-win season that I can remember for any team. So you get dinged on that. And then, I mean, the optimism around the Falcons was real. You had the over 8.5, and they finished,
7-10. That's Arthur
for the
Smith's
third year in
record.
a row. I got pulled into Falcons land. Plus these other lands.
Yeah.
How about that with Arthur Smith? 3 straight 7-10s. That's
So we finished 500 as a group. You could look at it that way.
I like that.
How about that, Mark?
You're only as good as your weakest link, so.
Greg, unbelievable.
I'm uncomfortable with Dan saying these things.
I'm uncomfortable. I've never been around someone that's been this hot. I think you missed one Rainmaker all year.
I think that was 4-1. Yeah, I lost track of, but yeah, something like that.
How can we monetize Greg's?
I'd say leave the NFL and move to Las Vegas.
Well, we're not allowed to do any of this stuff. We're not allowed.
I didn't say betting.
Bet.
How do we monetize Greg's
that's how I would
ability?
monetize.
But before I came here, I did some of that, and you would have, you want to have some big years. You're not going to have a big year every year. You want to survive in the years that aren't big years, and then have some big years. And this would have been a big year.
There you go.
Good advice for me to take.
Let's check now.
You
Let's check in.
You did not survive.
Let's check in on our running back draft, which was obviously a source of major consternation. Now, this is one place where if Gregg somehow comes out on top here, I'm walking out of here because Gregg famously butchered the draft back in June. But now we could use hindsight
let's
to
see
look
where
back.
we are now.
Let's see where we're at.
How do we even evaluate?
Let's
this?
start. Let's do the same thing. Let's go Dan first. Let's see what I got. All right. So I had Nick Chubb. Woof. But what are you going to do? Austin Eckler.
Well, hold on. Can we view Nick Chubb as who he really is versus the season he had?
Well, let's just look at it through the prism of the season for now.
Okay.
Because obviously Chubb is an all-time
170 yards, didn't score a touchdown,
and then blew out his knee in hideous fashion on a Thursday night in October, I believe it was. Austin Eckler. I don't know what happened to Eckler.
Oh, that's a miss.
He totally fell off the map. Josh Jacobs, another guy, started very slowly and then started to find himself, had some big games, and then got hurt at the end of the year. And then Breece Hall, of the four, this is the one I was least comfortable with. He ends up going over 1,500 yards of total offense for the Jets. A very bad offensive
Good
line.
fourth pick if this is
bad.
listed in order.
So I hit on Hall, and then Chubb, what are you going to do? But Eckler and Jacobs I missed on. They just didn't have great years. All right, so not that hot for Zuzzer. Okay, let's go to Gregg Rosenthal. All right, Bijan Robinson, who very frustrating year for Bijan. Did have moments, including a long touchdown reception in Week 18, but not the guy we all thought he was going to be.
1,400 yards,
not
and
a miss,
8 touchdowns though.
Did he have 1,400
from scrimmage?
Not a total, not a miss or anything.
Not a miss, I think,
but not a big.
We were expecting him to be, a seismic land.
A lot of these guys,
not his fault though. Not his fault. I think he has huge years ahead of him. Alvin Kamara, suspended to start the year, had a steady year, but he's not the same guy anymore. He was okay. He was fine.
1,160 yards and 6 touchdowns, again from scrimmage, not rushing.
Right. In fact, he is 3 straight years. I read this. He's been under 4 yards a carry for 3 straight years, which you don't see a lot. So Kamara has fallen off a little bit. Jonathan Taylor, a guy who obviously started with a contract holdout and everything, the injury about that. He warmed up as the season went along. So Taylor and then Aaron Jones, who did nothing for the first 2.5 months of the season, but finished strong with 300-yard games. Pretty good group.
That looks better. It looks a lot better than it did at other times during this season, though, because of what Taylor became.
I was very negative afterwards, and people came at me. And in the end, they were fine. It was a solid draft.
Mark,
yeah,
coming off the 0-4.
Right.
Let's win this running back draft.
I think you can.
I know one of them is.
All right, let's see. Let's check out Mark's 4. And he had the first pick, I remember. And he had Christian McCaffrey. So that's a big win. And Saquon Barkley. So McCaffrey had maybe his best year, which is saying something. Incredible and might be the offensive player of the year as a result. Saquon Barkley slowed down, banged up down the stretch, but I really thought Barkley had a good season overall.
Bad team.
Bad team.
1,200 yards from scrimmage, 10 touchdowns. So like a better Kamara, but he just looked better if you just watched it. Like the numbers are similar, but he was better.
Derrick Henry, like Alvin Kamara, it's pretty clear that he's not the same dude, but you saw even in week 18 that he still has juice in the tank, and he'll get a job next year. And I think he's a Hall of Famer, so nice guy to have there. And then Ramondre Stevenson, who quietly, because I had him on my fantasy team, I remember tracking him. It was like all the bad stuff going around the Patriots. He was the one guy that was steadily just going about his business, and I thought he was having a pretty good year until a high ankle sprain ended his year. Mark, you won the Around the NFL running back draft.
I'm giving it to you, Mark.
Yeah, I think so.
Did it.
I think so.
Give it up.
Thank you.
This is your life.
I wish I could feel as much in the victory that I know Greg feels in winning the things.
He's got to take a shot.
No, I'm not taking a shot at all. I really not. It's just like, I don't know where it's supposed to carry me.
Unbelievable
emotionally.
Speech. Unbelievable.
Sorry.
Finally, before we say goodbye, let's go through the Go Get My Lunch props. You ready? Cess Dog. None of us really had a very good year.
Yeah.
With this one. So, Cess Dog, here were your predictions. A kicker breaks the record for longest field goal. That's more than 66 yards during a Titans-Ravens game in London. Nope. Lost 2 sandwiches there. Rams trade Matthew Stafford. You were very hot.
I was.
You were very down on the Rams and very hot on Stafford being moved. He obviously didn't move and then had a huge year. You lost 3 sandwiches there, including to Lakeisha. Dak Prescott is benched for performance reasons.
I mean, yeah, these are huge.
Whoa,
that's
a big swing.
You have to remember, like when I create these, like the Stafford one, not so much, but like I'm doing this for the show.
Showman.
I mean, this
Shamo.
But you're believing that Dak Prescott's going to be bad.
I think there is a world where
he was great.
Like, I think things could have gone real south for the Cowboys, maybe, and Dak gets caught in like the crosshairs of it all, and that did not happen.
And it was probably around the time of the Trey Lance trade, so in your mind you're like, oh, then they'll play Trey Lance or something.
Yeah.
Weird stuff happens. And then finally, a star QB loses at least 1 star. See, now this is the Cess Dog ones. The other ones are just predictions gone awry. A star QB loses at least 1 star due to an off-field incident involving a problematic individual dressed in a costume. Anything? It looks like, according to Nick Fortier, who runs GoGetMyLunch.org and does an incredible job at it. Thank you, Nick. That cost you 3 sandwiches as well.
Is it so? That ended with yesterday's Bills-Dolphins game.
We'll give you the playoffs. How about that? Class X over here.
And it has to be can it be a player who's not currently
anything
playing?
You want.
Okay.
Like the loosest calibration of this, we'll give it to you.
Right.
Gregg Rosenthal, Justin Herbert finishes higher in MVP voting than Patrick Mahomes.
We don't know yet, but I will lose two on that because they're
Neither
both
will
going to
get a vote.
0.
Yeah, so that's a loss. The Lions win the NFC North. You got that.
Okay.
Very good.
That's a W.
You guys took me up on that.
Took you up on it. Mac Jones finished. This is the one I teased on the Sunday show. Mac Jones finishes ahead of Daniel Jones in the QB index, which Dan and Mark took you up on. And apparently, when Shook puts together the final version, we'll have every quarterback. And I do not imagine, even though Daniel Jones didn't do squat this year, that Jones would be ahead of him. So Mac might be at the very bottom.
I'm going to lose that, which is, right church, wrong pew. Daniel Jones, out of 68 starters, will probably not be in the top 40, but he
Yeah.
will be ahead of Mac Jones. There's no way.
Let's see how far apart they are, because it shouldn't be too far.
All right, so like you were down on the Rams, I just had this like weird feeling about the Lions flopping, which was obviously wrong, because I have the Lions never claim sole possession of first place in the NFC North, and they win on Thursday night against the Chiefs.
That's historically bad.
Darius drops all those balls, and they get beat by 1 point. So they won the North, so let alone one day. They were there every day pretty much. Or was it every day? Did they ever fall out of first place in that division?
No.
I don't think they did.
No.
So,
Wire to wire.
Big old FU to Daddy Rich. Devontae Adams or Mike Evans will be traded prior to the 2023 trade deadline. Ooh, I like that one, but it just because I was thinking
You had the Bucks crashing.
Raiders bad, Bucks bad, Devontae, yeah. So
Devontae was like talking a lot back then. Things seemed
I think one
ill.
or both of those guys are on a new team next year, but that was not the wager, so it cost me two. J.J. Watt plays in 2023.
Oh, I took you up on that.
Only Greg, though, took me up on the mark. You stayed away. I love when the stayaways happen.
Because I think that made like some interesting sense. I don't know.
But by the way, there's still a few weeks left. And TJ Watt just got hurt. Maybe the Steelers pick up the phone.
JJ did break that news that he's out for these 2 games.
That'd be such a Steelers
What
thing
if
to do.
What if JJ filled in for Nick for 2 weeks until he came back? Or TJ?
I mean, it's such a Steelers thing to do.
How about naming your kids JJ and TJ? Like, how about that?
Well, or you name them what they stand for, and then they decided they weren't into those names, and condensed.
All right, so I wasn't in on the Falcons, but I did believe in Bijan enough to say Nick Chubb or Bijan Robinson lead the NFL in rushing. Chubb, we discussed, blew out his knee. Bijan was trapped in.
I
Arthur
didn't
Smith
take you up
land.
on that, which was stupid. I was all in on Bijan.
This one is right. Nick has this listed as a loss, but I don't know why. Tom Brady is commentating games for Fox by 2024. There's a report just came out that he's working on it, and I think it's
2024.
happening. Right. This season, he needs to do it. This upcoming season, 2024.
I no longer would have taken that. I'm hoping we are right, Mark, but the signs are looking poor.
And then this is kind of a cess dog one, which I like. The birds, remember the birds falling out of the sky in Mexico?
Yeah,
last February?
sure.
It happened during Super Bowl week. I said that will be the first of several unexplained phenomenon over the next 2 years. So I have until next February on that one. So that one, I guess, is just sitting out there still.
Did that get created like at some other time?
That was created, I think, Super Bowl week because it happened like a couple days before the game. And my cousin Mike, I brought to the Super Bowl, who's a big UFO and conspiracy guy.
Uh-huh.
And I remember going down a wormhole with him in the hotel room in Arizona. And I was pretty hot to trot about more stuff happening. But, maybe it does. Maybe it has. Any other conspiracy tinfoil people out there, let me know if I've missed anything in the past.
Well, I'm sure people can come
12
up
months.
with several unexplained phenomenon if they just want to.
And Mark, you did not, true to form, take me up on that. But Greg, of course, did. He's like, there is no such thing as unexplained phenomenon. Something like that.
I don't like the 2-year part of it. I think that's why I didn't get attached to that.
Eric Roberts. Now, the producers have a famously messy reputation when it comes. They never win a sandwich prop. However, the Bills out-sack and out-intercept the Jets. I like this one. And where do we come down on it? Oh, you got it.
No.
Yeah. The Bills, 18 interceptions. Jets, 17-10 this season.
Oh, stop it. So it was the INT on the last.
The Rap one not only locked up the
Yes.
AFC East division,
Whoa.
but that out-intercepted. Me
Eric
and Dan,
Roberts, you son of a bitch.
we were going back and forth, actually, about the Jets' defense kind of balling out in that game against the Patriots, and the Bills out-sacked the Jets 54-48. So,
Wow.
ding, ding.
Wait,
Nice
what?
hit.
Because it says you lost it here.
I think
Yeah, I don't know
Nick
what
was
those
mistaken. I don't know. He has some data points there that
Okay.
don't appear to be accurate.
Yep.
So they were close.
It was
in
close.
both,
I
but
think
you hit it.
I think the Bills
Wow.
went into Week 18 like plus 13 in sacks, but what did the Jets end up
They
with?
had 5
6
or
that
6,
week, yeah. And then there was a 2 interception swing in the Jets game, so they actually went into the final game of the season down 1, but then that Rap
How
one.
about that?
Yeah, so big win for me, guys.
Let's give some applause
Well
to
done.
Eric.
Yeah.
Everything's
What a
coming
moment.
up.
What a
Roberts.
moment.
Everything's coming up.
And I have a kid.
3 sandwiches he gets. And that is, honestly, a big deal because the producers never win.
Yeah, but the producers are each different individual people, so it's not going to predict how Eric would do.
I'm just saying, historically,
No, it's true.
This was coming out of Hard Knock season, so we spent a lot of time watching the Jets, me and you, getting pumped up in defense. So I thought something, okay, good, something to track throughout the year, and actually came down to the wire.
And they were two good defenses, and the Bills statistically in those categories.
When Rapp made that interception, Eric, were you aware that was winning you sandwiches?
Yes.
Wow. I wish we knew that. That is
what a moment.
Because me and Dan were talking about it, and I don't
job.
think, and then I knew there was a swing because of the 2 in the morning game, and then
that was good.
There was the 1 and 2.
I'm a little surprised that the Bills outsacked the Jets. Jets had a lot of guys that were like around 6, 7, 8 sacks. I didn't realize Buffalo's pass rush with no Von Miller was that fierce, but good for you. Were they top 5?
Let's see here. The sacks were, they would be 1, 2, 3, 4. 54 behind Dolphins with 56, Chiefs with 57, and Rams with 60. And then the Jets were somewhere down towards the middle.
Interesting. Okay. And one more. This one's not official, but we got a major hit from Lakeisha. Speaking of Lakeisha, we did NFL Plus that's coming up a little bit later this month, where we're going through all the Super Bowls in recent years, and we talked about the incredibly difficult Super Bowl around Chris's passing. But we talk about Chris and the that Bucks Chiefs Super Bowl, and then a great video that Lakeisha made, a letter she wrote to Chris. You got to check out NFL Plus when that drops, and also on DAZN if that's how you get it overseas and out in international territories. But Lakeisha had a wager when she was on the show. Listen to this one. Lamar Jackson finishes top 3 in MVP voting. And guess what? All 3 of us took her up on it. A little surprising, Greggy.
I think just in the spirit of taking the
He's
person
gonna
that's
win the
here.
damn thing. Forget about top 3. He might win it unanimously.
And Lakeisha's mom, one of the bigger Lamar Jackson fans around, and I think Lamar Jackson kind of brought Lakeisha's mom into football.
That's absolutely right.
She loves Lamar. She loves Lamar. Oh, we got a Claybon one, too. Jalen Reagor had over 40 catches in 2020.
When was this?
I don't know.
I do recall. That was
Let's
like.
see, where did he come down at?
If I had known that, I would have enjoyed the bizarre Jets-Patriots game on Sunday where Jalen Reagor was suddenly the Patriots' #1 receiver.
I think
but he did
Claybon
not,
regretted that after.
He did not come close to 40.
He had 7.
Okay.
7 catches for Jalen Reagor. Getting behind the Pats offense is always a tricky proposition. All right, so there you go. There are sandwich props. Maybe we'll do a couple Super Bowl week. We tend to do that. We make one Super Bowl prediction, and that's it. So here's the rest of the week. On Wednesday, we're going to have Connie Fox back with us. How about that? And we're going to give out our awards for the 2023 season, and then start looking ahead to Super Wild Card Weekend on Thursday when we preview all the games on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. Anything else, boys?
I think we covered it. This is a big week.
Good job, everybody. Thank you to everybody for listening. And remember, when all else is lost, it's a new horizon. Heed the call.